you may well wind up being a wildlife leader next year, right?
Yeah, high school.
Oh, you're in high school, okay. So, but Moose is a certified committee trainer now. We're so glad that he's official. Denny did a little ceremony with water and wine.
Yeah, that's right.
But he was here 2 years ago, and our committee was like, gosh, it was so great. Just the enthusiasm about getting people off the bench and getting them into the game. And now Moose has developed this great committee playbook in terms of what does it look like to be in the game. And it's really going to be great. So I'm really looking forward to this time with Moose. And let's give it up for Moose Vallerie.
No, not this year. No groping. Okay, good. Do you need to explain that now that I just said that word out loud? Okay, if you need a playbook. Now, like I said, the notes, we were expecting 25 apparently, and this is awesome. So thank you for coming. But if you don't have it, lean in next to somebody who does, and if you're married and both husband and wife grab notes, or raise your hand and let me have one of those back, and I'll pass that to somebody who needs one. Anybody? Bueller?
Anybody married? Or?
Anybody married? Did anybody like purple? Okay. Thank you. Well, so yes, what Casey said is true. I absolutely, well, it's great to be back, first of all. I love this ministry. I think I said it the same last time. I've done this enough now over the last 2 years where I probably won't dissolve into tears like Casey and even Fetz, after making fun of you, did all throughout his entire talk. But my passion and my heart is for kids to meet Christ, for every kid to meet Christ, because time is short. And I know that now because my kids are in that pipeline. They're going to high school club and wildlife, and they're in the middle of it. And it brings me back to when I was there, and I was sharing with one of the folks up sitting in the comfy seats here down below, and we were looking at all the leaders, and I just thought, how great that we have those young, energetic, crazy, knuckle-headed leaders that go after our kids and go where it's into that third world country on a daily basis with consistency, with love, passion, and bring hope and the joy of Jesus. You know, Casey and I were talking about how great it is to bring our own children at their young, and my kids are younger, to camp. And we had our first assignment last year in years. My wife works for the region now, so we get to do assignments, and I get to be a staff spouse, which means you'll see me at the hot tub with a cigar if I can get away with it. And to see my kids running around camp and these summer staff loving on my kids, I'm thinking their picture of what a cool believer and follower of Christ is what they see when they come here for a month. And that's what all of your kids felt when they were involved in Young Life, when they looked at their leaders, and what your kids in your area now look at when they see your leaders come up to. That's what a cool, godly man of God or woman of God looks like, and it's such a great model, isn't it? I hope you're as proud of your people as I think you probably are for roughing it up on the front lines. You know, it's gonna parallel a little bit, because we're gonna use a sports analogy for most of today. When we go over the playbook, it'll be based mainly around a football huddle, and you don't really need to know football to understand the purpose of a huddle, but we'll walk through all that in time. But it really does parallel a huddle in a game where we plan privately what we are going to do publicly, and how we will take what we, in a committee meeting, what we plan together, and how we're going to live that out in the community, and how do we do that most efficiently and effectively with the limited time that we have from these wonderful volunteers that is you. So I affirm you for the time that you log every month, every week, whatever your role is, whatever you do at your local level. I affirm you for that and what you do, because it makes a difference. And what's your name again? Shelley. I think we all resonated with Shelley's story yesterday, account. It happened. It's not a fairy tale. It was not a story. It was an account. And I was sitting in the back with Andy Fetzer, who spoke today, and he was one of my club kids. And his parents and my parents met the Lord through Young Life after Andy and I met the Lord. And we're just sitting there, we're like, the waterworks are going, and I'm just thinking, that's what God does best. He takes these dirty, dusty kids, cleans them up, shines them up a little bit. They go home, they make their bed, they empty the dishwasher, they don't cuss their parents out. And they're like, wait a minute, whatever this is, I want it. I love my son or daughter now. I mean, I loved them before, but because I had to. But now I really love them. I actually like them. And that happened in my family, and that happens all the time in your area, in my area, in areas across the country. The great privilege I get to have as the National Committee Trainer, which is a fancy way of saying I just get to fly around and tell people how to love their staff and get involved. I get to see I get to hear the same accounts all over the country. My son and my daughter came back. I couldn't believe what I saw. And whatever he had or she had, I wanted it. And it is Jesus Christ. And that is all, and our founder said it best, that is all Young Life is all about. It's not the camps, it's not the skits, it's not the leaders, it's Jesus Christ. He is the most attractive thing. He is the reason we are sitting in this room and even remotely caring. He's the reason you got in your car when you had 10 other things to do this weekend. He's that reason. He's why we do what we do. And because of that, he also promises us hope, eternal life, in a place when we are done here and we wash our hands of this freaking world that sucks so much most of the time. When we're done, we will be in heaven with him, with them, with the ripple effect of all of this ministry and other great ministries have done. We'll be with the Lord forever and ever. And this will be over. Our job will be done. Well done, thou good and faithful servants. That's the sort of thing I get excited about when I think about what do we as a committee have to do with all of this. What's our job? What's our part? What's my role? So we'll get into all of that. That's just a little bit of an intro. One question I wanted to have, so I don't love I love to talk. And I love to hear myself. That's terrible, isn't it? My wife says, Moose, you love your voice. I was like, I think I do. Boy, that's got to be something wrong with that. But I really do want this time to be, hey, we're in a huddle. We are together now. We're a team. I'm one of you. I'm on a committee. I'm the committee chair. I've been there for 4 years. Our committee at times is awesome, and our committee at times sucks wind. I mean, it's hard. So I'm with you. We've had committee members of only 6, and now we have 20. So I've seen them all. I was on staff with Young Life, and as Casey said, I started 2 separate areas. Both of those, I pretty much single-handedly destroyed the committee as the area director. So I know how to screw it up. And I think through all that, I learned what I should have done and how it was supposed to work. So I feel like I'm a better coach now than I was a player. You ever hear that? How could Tiger Woods' golf coach be the greatest golfer in the world, right? Well, because he's a better coach than he is a player. And that would be the way I sort of feel about what God has done in my life. So, first thing I wanted to do is ask you, based on what you think your role is on your committee, give me a story or something that you feel like has happened to you where you go, Moose, this is how the Lord has used me on my committee in my role. It's okay. You might have to think about it. That's okay. You may not know. I don't know what my role is. That's why I'm here, Moose. But some of you maybe have been on a committee for a while, and what you're doing, it really ministers to you. You might not even know what to call it. But what are you doing on your committee right now that's blessing you, that you feel like this is what I do, this is what I'm good at? Go ahead.
I think just over the years, just being an ambassador for Young Life in the community.
Yeah.
Just, when people, it's nice when you hear from someone else. Oh yeah, so-and-so told me that you were involved with Young Life. That's the ultimate to me, and I like doing that. I like being an ambassador.
Yeah. Yeah, spokesperson for Young Life. Yep,
Right.
absolutely. Ed.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Ed. I may not remember any other names, but Ed, I remember already, so that's a good start. Thank you for setting it. Yes.
We're brand new, we're just trying to get it started, but I just think for years when I moved to, we live in Hatfield, New Jersey, when I moved to Hatfield, just praying for other Christians and just praying for Christians in our schools and, meeting one and walking the neighborhood and praying.
Yeah.
And now just seeing people come together and, have this desire and yeah.
So your heartbeat is prayer.
Yeah.
You see the field and you go, what I can give is I can pray. I can go before the Lord specifically because God has gifted me in that way. That's great. And welcome to the committee. Nice to have you on. Be great in 10 years for you to be one of the old farts in here. So I just, you don't have to sign on that.
Give me a day.
That's right. But we give you the nice room when you've been on for a while. Thank you. So great. You're great at praying. Awesome. That's a position in the huddle. We'll talk about that.
I'll just add, I'm counting on that because
And you're on deck.
I do a lot of the administrative work for our committee, and sometimes that can get a little tedious, but I found that God really spoke to me, like, as I'm putting together mentor notebooks and things like that, he was like, you pray over these. Pray for these mentors who are going to be getting these. Pray for the things that I'm mailing out or the things that I'm sending out to people. So I have found that he's put on my heart that, yeah, you're putting this stuff together, but be praying for who's going to have these things and help them in their ministries.
Prayer. By the way, on your committees, for those of you that remember 2 years, thank you, by the way. For those of you that remember, I said everybody's on 2 subcommittees in your area. Does anybody remember what those were? And one of them we've just talked about. Everyone's on the prayer subcommittee, and everybody's on the leader care subcommittee. So the heart of this mission is to pray for everything. And if you don't think God moves in prayer, then find another ministry. But I know you do. And so pray. I mean, let the Lord move you to ask him and go before and intercede and get the yearbooks and all the things you're talking about. Man, that's exciting me. Okay, that's a relief. It's out of my hands. Now the Holy Spirit is on it. And that's what we're unleashing, is the angels of the armies of the Lord to go work on our behalf to go reach these kids. Because it's a battle. Am I wrong? Michael the Archangel, hey, we'd have been here a lot sooner. But we've been opposed. But we're here now. So we pray, we keep praying because the battle, that's what we're talking about. So it's absolutely critical. I don't know where my wedding ring is. I just realized I fiddled with that. Might be back in the room. I showered today, which was the first. But now I'm a little nervous. Go ahead.
I was going to say that I've been affirmed by many people in many areas of my life about my skill at writing, creative writing, or short, sweet stuff. And I actually asked God a year ago, beginning of January, I said, I really want you to give me something to do that uses these gifts because it brings great joy to my heart.
Yeah.
And so what we've introduced we're one of the Young Lives Committee people, with Debbie Perkins. So she gave me the assignment of every month, 9 months out of the year, she'll funnel me a prayer request from one of our clubs. And I write it and we send it out to our prayer supporters by email. And it has brought great pleasure to me, but I have no doubt people are so delighted to pray and that God's doing great things through that. So it's just been really affirming to me, and I'm really thankful.
And what is ministering to you, thank you. What's ministering to you is great because we do this for the Lord to bless us as well. But the blessing to others is you're unleashing your community to pray. No, you are. That's the beauty. You absolutely are. Unless they're hitting delete, and then we can just pray for them on their way to hell. Just kidding. But you're unleashing your area. So do you understand? Whatever you do for this ministry has a ripple effect. I'm licking a stamp. Well, that stamp is going on a piece of mail that's going to a house, and that house is going to read that most likely. And that might change the way they feel. That might stir a parent who's like, what is Young Life? Oh, it helps me understand it a little bit more. And then you have their heart. Ripple effect. Okay, what else? Thank you.
On
way back a long time ago, I was a volunteer leader, and I never knew anybody. I didn't even know what the NY committee was. And I just wonder what a difference it would have made to feel supported and know that people were praying for me. I think there probably was a committee, but I didn't know about it. And I was a volunteer leader for 6 years. And so I hope our leaders know that we are praying for them and loving them. I get to put together the Christmas gift for them, and it's just fun stuff. I love doing it.
And I will tell you this, I remember being a leader, a volunteer leader, and not necessarily knowing my committee until they would show up at stuff or do stuff like what you're saying. And it's absolutely critical. One of the things that we will talk about at some point. I have notes, but I'm not necessarily a note follower, so this might morph into something totally different as the Spirit leads, obviously. But one of the things that I remember the most is when they would come and get in the trenches with us. I would remember when they would show up at club. I would remember when they would have us over for a dinner for a leadership. We would always remember that. And when we would do these committee leader weekends, I would hope at some point, and I'm sure your area will have some sort of area get together where it's just your area, so they can see you and you can see them, and that stuff is enormous. Like one of my favorite people on earth is actually Andy Fetzer's father, who met the Lord through Andy. Fetzer was the guy that spoke, and I got to know him because he had me over for dinner, and I was getting ready to give one of my first club talks ever. He had me over for dinner. He was new to the Lord. He didn't know what I was going to talk about, but they fed me, and obviously I like food. And I just remember being careful. I was like, these adults, I don't even know them. The next month, actually it was his wife, the Woodards. His wife is Becky Woodard. And his wife they gave me a blanket, like a nice blanket, because I was a single guy I had nothing. I had milk crates for nightstands and, that kind of single guy thing. And she gave me a blanket. It had my name on it. I thought, that's awesome. So it's little things like that that have always sort of stuck in my head, that this is a team. We are in this together, even those adults, and it connects the team. And connecting the team builds a family that is attractive to people, especially of the family like this, whether you're attractive or not, right? We're attractive to people. So, awesome that you do that. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's extra mile stuff, When kids see what you're doing, it's the second mile. Everybody knows the go the extra mile in the scriptures, right? The Roman guards, if they wanted, they tap you on the shoulder. You're supposed to carry their bag a mile, right? That's it. And then you drop it, and then that guy goes on his way, and the Roman guard does his thing. Well, Jesus says, I want you to go the extra mile. So you can imagine the Roman soldier going, hey, you carry my bag. All right, let's go. Get to the mile. What happens at that mile? What's everybody do? Stops, right? Except for me. Hey, let's go another mile. What? We walk another mile. Where did we talk more? First mile or second mile?
Second mile.
Where was life? Where was the fun? When did the fun start?
Second mile.
What do you think we talked about in the second mile?
Everything.
Why are you doing it? The second mile. Everything you do for Young Life is second mile, because you have a life outside. You're ministering to people in your life. Young Life is second mile. It's the stuff that people look at and go, you're doing what with kids? Second mile. Let me tell you what we're doing. It's this ministry, and it is awesome. Really, tell me more about it. Second mile. That's where the extravagant living is in that second mile. And that's what we do. That's what our role is that second mile. So, who else? Have you been blessed or blessed in your role?
I do some of the leader care in our area, which some of it's kind of been mentioned, and I have the Latina. We have a great committee, which I'm so thankful for. And it is, I feel for me, what brings me to tears is like, it's no heart for the lost, but it is those leaders that God's given to us that are just amazing in our area. So to be able to just have them over for meals and to encourage them or send them a note, or a lot of our college students to, just give them, when they're having their finals or something, it's just showing up with food or snacks or something. And they're just so grateful, so thankful. just gives them kind of the courage and strength to kind of go out for those kids.
That's right.
You know, that are on the other side. So, can I say one more thing?
Absolutely. No one else is.
Also, I help out with the sender team, so I get to communicate with like the sender team head for each of our schools, which these couples or just individuals are just so amazing what they're doing for each of their teams, to all of their team leaders. You know, just we have the committee, but then we have these sender teams who are writing letters, sending emails, providing food, and and it's just so amazing to see how much they're loving. And that just, I don't know, we're just,
Yeah.
I think we just love working our area.
And you talk, thank you. You talk about staring at that leader, right? You know, that college leader or whatever that leader is. But if you think about it and step back for a second, and with the wisdom that God has given you, look 10 years down the road in that leader's life, you'll see all of the staff. You know, we have our 25-year anniversary in eastern Loudoun County, which is in Northern Virginia. We have our banquet coming up. We're trying to figure out who are we going to get to speak. And, so we're thinking of all the big names and all this and that. And then all of a sudden, we picked one. And I actually have to call him and tell him that he can't do it anymore, because one of the people that is now coming is a former staff person named Todd Erickson, who's now a missionary to Guatemala. And we've asked Todd to come back from Guatemala and speak at our banquet. Todd's a Young Life kid. Todd at one point was that college kid that you served dinner to. Todd served his time on the Young Life staff. Right? Sorry.
Here's a question. What is the difference between leader care and sender group, if I understood you correctly?
In our area, we have, for each of our high schools, we have a team of adults that, we have our committee, which is for our whole county, and then we have a sender team for each high school, which is, there might be one parent that's in charge of that, who sends emails or makes sure there's supplies for club, for each of the clubs that we have represented. So they kind of are the communicators, and also another means for the leaders to be cared for as far as meals and just that sort of thing. So that is that extra, layer that we have of, care for our leaders and for our area. So, yes, anybody who wants to be involved, parents whose kids come to campaigners or a club, if they want to be a part of the email, distribution list, we ask them. If not, if they're tired of getting like 10 Young Life emails a week, then we take them off. But, so we just have a sender team for each of our high schools. That just makes it easier for our leaders.
Can I ask you a question, too?
Sure.
Is there someone on your committee that's in charge of those sender teams?
Yes, me.
Maybe you can get together and find out the specifics later.
In the process of doing that, we did have someone from our committee step up to want to do that. I just may want to answer a few questions on how to start it up. Yeah.
She's free.
I can say that.
Do we have anybody that's serving with Young Lives in here? Anybody? Young Lives. Let me hear from you. What do you do? Wait till you hear what these leaders do and these committee folks. Tell us some of the stuff you do as committee folks for Young Lives. If I have to stand right in front of you, I'm going to hear from you.
Those two.
She was going to
Go ahead.
I do the treasure stuff.
Okay, which is very important. We need to know that. Listen, money in all of our areas is, if you don't know about the money coming in and going out, you're going to be in trouble. And when you don't have money coming in, do you know what happens, Treasurer? They go on reduced salary. None of the committee went on reduced salary, but the staff does. Their bills didn't go on reduced salary. So it's important to have a treasurer. That is definitely, we call it a TDS/finance position on the field. Come on, Young Lives. I'll say it myself, but I don't want to. Remember, I like to hear myself talk. Is there anything unique? Go ahead.
Well, I've been pondering what space. I don't know, but I think one thing that I like the most about being on committee is I am so encouraged to come and hear Monica, whose committee I'm on, talk about the girls, what's going on, the growth in Philadelphia. That's where we are, from one club now to 3 clubs, and it's very exciting and is very encouraging.
Great. Thank you very
Well,
much.
and Leader Care, when we go visit the clubs, which probably many community members do,
And maybe
and
not.
go to camp.
So it's good. Don't assume they do, but that's right.
and
That's
go
good.
to camp. Well, we're encouraged to go to camp if we can and help with child care.
Make dinners for
There's
clubs.
lots. We make dinners for clubs.
Make dinners for club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
girls and play games with them.
Yep.
Hold their
It's
kids.
a neat experience.
Let me give you a little bit more. I mean, I know I'll get head nods when I start to talk because the young wives, if you're just being shy, I respect that. So I'm in very I work closely with our Young Lives director. Her name is Sharon, and down in D.C. And to hear her heart and passion, but then to also hear the the reality. You know, some of these girls are homeless. They have situations that you and I would go, "Are you serious? You think we're qualified to handle those situations?" Our staff and our leaders deal with the basics, getting them clothes, food, rides, diapers, the bare necessities. Yeah, I mean, legal issues, right? Legal issues, programs that might help assist them. Am I right? We're talking, you know. Yeah, diapers. Someone said that, so, but double the diapers, right? It's poop a lot. You remember that? For those of you that were parents. It is in the young lives you're dealing with, and really even in urban ministry as a whole. It's a very holistic approach to ministry. So us suburbanites, you know, come on to club. That's about it. We'll take you to. We'll meet at McDonald's afterwards. You know that some folks, whether it's Young Lives or in the urban areas, some of these kids go to school to eat for a meal. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, I didn't know that stuff. I heard that, I thought, what can I do? That's not right. That's not right. And yet, what can Young Life do? We can send people. We can raise money for a staff person and for committee members to go. I love the passage, and we're going to talk about Matthew, where the the laborers are few, harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There's one passage in here. By the way, I shared this 2 years ago. I share this everywhere I go, whether I'm giving a banquet talk or I'm speaking to committee, because it is the passage that tells us how to do ministry, because it's the way Jesus did it. And by the way, I think we're done at 12:30. Is that what time we're supposed to finish? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
12:30.
who has a watch? I left my watch and my wedding ring. 5 minutes to what? All right, would you just say 5 minutes, Moose, when we get to
What time do you want to finish?
What time are we supposed to finish?
12:30 is supposed to be.
So 12:20. We'll try to finish a little early. I'd like to be that guy. You know, no one ever finishes early. I need 5 minutes to clear my throat at the end. That'll probably take the rest of the time. But it parallels so much because we're trying to model our ministry after Jesus, right? That'd be probably a good place to start. So read along with me if you have it next to you. If you don't have a note, lean over to your neighbor. And let the Lord, again, if you've heard this or read this a million times, pretend that right now is the first time you've ever seen this. And let the Lord speak to you, because it's His word, and today's a different day in your life. So let the Lord speak to you differently today. The word of the Lord. Matthew 9:35 through 38. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he, Jesus, saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his boys, "Hey guys, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Just a few of us. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." All right. First thing that Young Life is great at, that Jesus did. What are the first two words? What do our leaders do? We go. Do we say, hey, do we make an announcement, club is here, everybody show up? No. We go to the high school. Anybody ever here been a leader? If you've ever been a leader, you know those days. You know the diarrhea that you get before you're going to the school for the first time. I'm just being real, folks. I'm telling you, I was so scared to get out of the car the first time I went to the high school because I was afraid, as he said, some 14-year-old might make fun of me. And I'm thinking, hey, listen, I was in DC Talk. I was in a Christian rap group. I'm cool. I'm on 500,000 albums. No one cared. No one knew. They didn't know what a DC Talk was. Of course, being from Washington, D.C., they may have thought I was in government.
Right.
They didn't care. But going to that high school was tough. So we just go. We just get out of the car. There's 3 levels of contact work. Level 1 is just being seen. Pretty easy. You just show up. I started an entire Young Life Club from running around a track at Norwood High School in Massachusetts. The first time we finally had club, half the kids that came in the room said, "Aren't you the guy that runs around on the track every day after school?" That's me. That's level 1. I never said a word. It's being seen, it's going. Jesus went. You can't see Jesus unless he comes to you because you're not going to go to him. You don't know him yet. So he would go. What would he do? Would he bring them? Would he invite them to his synagogue? No, he would teach in their synagogue. What would he say when he got there? Good news. That's what we do. We proclaim hope. I mean, listen, we're all not that sharp. I mean, we love kids and we love others, but, you know, I mean, I was a C student at best. But I knew one thing, I knew that Jesus loved me and he transformed my life, and now I have a story to tell. And I have hope to proclaim. And not my hope. Well, it is my hope, but it comes from knowing Jesus. So we proclaim good news. And this next line is really where Young Life has ventured into new grounds when it says, and healed every disease and sickness. That's the holistic ministry that Jesus had with us. He didn't just give us hope, but he healed us. You know, in our urban ministries, our Capernaum ministries, and our Young Lives ministries, it's not just driving a kid to club. It's the whole thing. It's housing them, making sure they have diapers and food and a warm place to stay and legal representation and whatever it might be. It's everything. And what a model. And Jesus modeled that. The whole person, healing them, taking care of them, giving them hope, loving them. And that's what we in Young Life are the best at, especially those ministries that focus specifically on the holistic approach to every kid. I love that. And then he says, and when he saw the crowds, and those of you that were leaders, and this, by the way, you're thinking, Moose, when are you going to get to the playbook? Yeah, that's what we're here to hear. I saw it on the screen. It said playbook. If you don't understand this playbook is worthless to you. Okay, so that's we're gonna dive headlong into this in the second seminar, just to give you a little tip. But you need to understand, when he saw the crowd, he had compassion on them, right? Because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. As you were so vulnerable in describing your own child's life and the progression, and you know, God bless you. Your story blessed me and will bless people. And that's what's so great. It's your story. No one can ever argue with that. That's what God did with you, whether it's good or bad. Divorce, death, breaking the law, whatever it would be, that's your story. And God's going to use it. And he used it yesterday to bless me. I'm crying like a baby in the back of the room hoping no one's looking at me. But it's your story. And it described a kid who became harassed and helpless. And let's face it, so was Mom. So were we. We were all harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And so he looks at them and he has compassion on them. And for those of you that remember this from 2 years ago, I told you, because I'm not the brightest bulb, I have to write definitions down. And so when I wrote down, what does compassion mean? I hear it all the time. When I read the definition, I thought, wow, that made me love Jesus even more, especially in this scripture. Listen, compassion is a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for another who is stricken by misfortune. Which, if it stopped there, big deal. So what? Hey, I feel sorry for you. Because anybody can do that. Anybody can look at your high school or your wildlife or your Young Lives girls or your Capernaum kids or your college club and go, I feel bad for how messed up those kids are. Boy, they're really screwed up. Man, that stinks. And then the second part, compassion is accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. There's the action. There's the call to duty. So now when you read it, it says, when Jesus saw the crowd, he had a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for them. But it was accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. He went, he saw it, called it what it was, and he wanted to solve the problem. But he said, I can't do it alone. And there's only 11 of us right now because Judas screwed up. So we're going to need more workers. We're going to need more laborers. We're not going to need people who are well-intentioned with good ideas that don't act. People with lots to say, you know, all hat, no cattle type people. We need workers. We need laborers. We need people who will see the problem and have a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. Our leaders do it well. Our committee does it well too. And that's what we're going to focus on when we go through the playbook is, what is our role? We work on two assumptions in Young Life. As a staff person, we work on two assumptions about our committee. Tell me if this is not true of you, just by nodding, you know, the same thing. You have a passion, first assumption is you have a passion for kids meeting Christ, and you think Young Life is a great tool to do that, correct? One assumption. Here's the second assumption. You're all limited in terms of your time, right? Yep. So we're going to identify the problem a little bit more before we solve it in the second one. So we might even finish early, but I'll have some time for questions. Do you know what your role is on the committee? Now, if you're a committee chair, do not take this personal, because I think even if you ask my committee today, half the hands would go up that I don't know what my role is, even though I talk to them about it all the time. So don't take it personal if you're a committee chair, Eastping, Berlin, or whatever. I'm a committee chair too. So how many of you would say you're not sure what your role is, honestly? Everybody knows their role? 3, that's it? All right, 4, not bad. All right, what's your role? Everyone else didn't, no one else raised their hand. What's your role? Tell me what your role is on the committee. Just in one word, go around the room. You know it?
Like options and leader care.
Okay, leader care. Leader care.
Leader care 17.
Yep.
TDS chair.
TDS.
Chair.
Chair.
Committee chair.
Committee chair. Okay, great.
Helping with Capernaum.
Helping with Capernaum. Capernaum, great. Leader care. I'll stop here eventually so you all won't have to share. I just want to hear somebody.
Anything that needs done.
Okay, so you don't necessarily know your specific role, but you're open to anything. Great. Okay, did you raise your hand?
No.
Okay, that's good. Who didn't raise their hand because they just didn't feel like raising it? That's a trick question, right? Why would I do it a second time? Okay, yes.
Fundraising, working on a 5K.
All right, fundraising, great.
The rub off on it. Chair. Chair.
I'm actually Casey's board chair, so it's supporting Casey and then supporting all of you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yep.
Just serving wherever needed.
Wherever needed, great. Same with you?
Yes.
Okay, we'll stop right there. Thank you. So.
How far is he going to go?
Yeah, no, that's always weird, isn't it, when people, like my mother, when she met the Lord and she started on the Young Life Committee, she said, as long as they don't make me talk or pray out loud, I'll show up at anything. The first time my mother was asked to pray, it was like a year into it, and bless her heart, she is like me, except she's more emotional. And she got one word out and just started bursting out in tears. She was just so happy and emotional, and it just all, okay, that's my mother. You meet her, you love her, but yeah, so no one has to, we won't go any further. But the point of what I'm saying is the number one reason that people don't, they're bench warmers, so to speak, on a committee is because of a lack of clarity as to what it is we're asking them to do. So committee chairs, as I am, tell me if this hasn't been typical of you, maybe, or maybe it's just me. Hey, anybody want to help out on the banquet? You always wait for the type A, most guilty person to eventually raise their hand, and then you go, awesome, you're it. Go for it.
We need some more of those type A's on our committee.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
Aren't they already
But you usually say, all right, go for it. If you have any questions, ask me. I don't know what to tell you, but if you have any questions, ask me, or ask so-and-so did it 5 years ago. You can probably call them. I think they moved to Hawaii. But usually that would have been the way, when I was on staff, that's the way we did it. Anybody want to, who wants to be committee chair? Anybody, please? Please, somebody, you know. And so then we go, okay, you're it. You're the banquets chair. And then we wonder, sometimes, for me, I was wondering, why does our banquets stink? Yeah, well, Moose, you never told them what to do. You just asked them to do something, and you didn't give them a playbook. You didn't give them a cheat sheet. Here's what you do. You know, there's manual. Young Life has a manual for everything, right? If you're a committee chair, you know this. You got a TDS committee chair. You got all sorts of manuals. They're about that thick, and it's actually, if you read it, it's great material, but no one really ever reads it. I mean, people don't read it. That's what I have found. I mean, it's not bad. So the playbook came because I thought we need to turn all this into a one-page cheat sheet for people who can look at it and in 5 minutes go, oh, that's a snapshot. I get it. That's easy. I love that. So that's what we're going to focus on. The number one thing they said is why people don't actively serve on a committee and then subsequently eventually fall off the committee is because they didn't know what it was you were asking them to do, what we didn't ask them to do. It's easy to say yes to something, but it's also easy to not do anything about it if you don't know what I didn't know what to do. No one ever told me. I have a heart for it, but I have limited time. So if I have heart for it and I have limited time, it's on us as committee chairs, as staff, to say, okay, then I'm going to simplify it for you. I'm going to put it all down on one page for you to be able to look at it and go, okay, now I can tweak it to fit my own personality, but here it is, right here in front of me. So I took this idea to Young Life headquarters, which Casey said, and they loved the idea. Of course, their first thought was, how do we get them to read and buy the manuals, though? Like, no, stop thinking corporate. Stop thinking about your service center stuff. And let's remember, we have people who love Young Life, but have limited time. We have to make this more easier for them, more manageable for them. You know, some of you in this room that are committee chairs are probably more qualified than I am to talk about this because your brain thinks better on these things, and how to organize and how to teach and how to train and all that. So I'm not saying I'm the best at it, which I always laugh because I'm the national committee trainer, and I think Young Life's going to wise up at some point and realize, why do we have Moose doing this again? But the experience that I've gained through it all and the way this is being greeted by the regions around the country that I'm sharing this with is, this is freedom. This is helpful for me. So I notice some of you are cheating already and looking because you can't wait, because you are the type A's. You're wondering who they are. And I want you to be chomping at the bit, but I want to do it in the next one. What time are we at? 10 after. What I want to do is just open it up. Maybe some of you committee chairs can help me too. And just open it up for questions or things that you might ask about your own committee, or you know, what you would like to, maybe questions you brought this weekend about what it takes or what it means to be on a committee, or how do I serve, or maybe some things that have worked for you. Moose, we do something similar to this. Mainly just a questions and answer time, but I'd like the committee chairs to help out if you have anything specific that you would say, yes, Moose, when we have put people in roles, this has happened. One last story. I'm a storyteller. I do coaching as well with Young Life. So it really, in order to get a playbook, Young Life has really said, you can't have this until you go through the coaching class with me, which is what this is. But it's typically 6 half-hour phone calls spread out over 2 months. And then once you've done that, then you can have the playbook. You get it as part of the coaching, and you can, you know, use it, do whatever you want. And we're talking about the playbook and coaching. And I got a call from a guy from Texas. And it was an area director. Because I want my committee chair, I want my committee chair to go through the training. They put something in the committee link about it, and I got calls and everything. He was one of them. And he goes, Moose, my committee, I'd never met the area director, because my committee is not doing anything. But one guy, now we talked for 15 minutes about his committee not doing anything. And the two assumptions were true. Passion for young life, they loved kids, very little time. But one guy, you ready for this? A fundraising idea. It's not a play in the playbook, but I'll tell you how you can be creative in your own areas. They did a pig pull fundraiser. Pig roast, pig pull. Something where they had like 2 or 3 pigs on a spit. They raised $25,000 cooking 3 pigs and eating them. Which, I love the idea. Understand how that raised 25, but he explained it to me. But you should have heard this area director. It was the dead mayor for the first 15 minutes. And then when he started talking about this one person on his committee who's working in his sweet spot, who's figured out what his role is and is freed up to do it with reckless abandon, his voice changed. He literally said the words, "This guy is keeping me on Young Life staff." And I thought, I was like, oh, that's great. You know, I'd been on the phone for about 20 minutes. I have another job, so I was trying to get off the phone. I hung up, and it hit me what he said in his voice. I called him right back. I was like, hey, I just want you to know, do you realize how excited you were when you told me about that? My point is, when we understand what our role is, and we're operating in our sweet spot, we are breathing life into our staff person. Because when we don't do it, who does it? The staff person. When the staff person is planning a banquet, planning a golf tournament, licking envelopes and stamps, what isn't he or she doing? Going to the synagogues, going to the schools, going to the girls, going to the guys, ministering, training leaders, recruiting, all of that stuff. We say, oh, you're better at it. We see you do it every year. We'll allow you to do that. And we take them away from what they're doing. We have the opportunity, when we're done with this and when we understand what our role is and where we fit in, and hopefully by the end of the second time, you'll be able to look through here and go, that position scratches my itch. That's the one I want to focus on. When you go to that and you do it, you are breathing life not just into your area director, you are breathing life into that area director's spouse, into those leaders, into your community. And that is being felt by the kids, and more kids as they're being reached for Christ by their leaders. Any questions about what we've shared so far? I was going to ask a question earlier about, you know, what are you doing on your committee, but any questions so far?
She was first up there. I was second.
Okay, you're on deck.
Thank you.
Real loud.
My question is, I'm committee chair, fairly new committee chair. Roles, how would you say would be the best way to sit down with your committee and give out roles or ask them?
Can you hear her, everybody?
Not really.
Okay, no, real loud.
Okay, I'm fairly new committee chair, and what is the best way to sit down with your committee and give out roles or figure out what roles they feel they're gifted with?
Okay, good. Now I'll answer the question.
When they don't know, like.
I'll answer it now in the short version. We'll talk about it maybe in the second one. She's saying, okay, Moose, great, got roles, good. But how do we put people in those roles? So, committee chair, I'm sure you probably have you either use the fiscal year as your first official committee meeting, which is what, September? Or you might use January as your first year, but have a point at some point in time to either pull out a graph or something and put the positions or the subcommittees, whatever you want to call it, up there. And you'll label them. I've given you the ones we use in our area in this book, okay? You might have different ones. Don't be limited. Whatever you do have, make it a play. Make it a position with goals, plays, and the players that will help us achieve those goals, okay? You'll see it when we go through. It's a little easy. And then I sit down, and for us it's September. And we put them all up on the board, and most of the people are plugged in right now. But we go through the playbook. Where do you resonate? Now, as a committee chair, you probably have an idea where most people are. I might call them ahead of time and say, hey, this is what we're doing. I want you to really be my chair right, the captain of the banquet, the chair of the banquet subcommittee. So you might want to get ahead of, beat that by saying to a couple of people that you really want to serve, because that's your team. The committee chair deals with the subcommittee leaders, the subcommittee chairs, right? So they want, like the area director should want the committee chair to be their person, not just somebody that was chosen and they don't, and they may not have the best relationship. Same with the committee chair and subcommittees. You want to be able to choose those leaders. So you want to choose that first, and that's what I did. Chose them first. Then we go to the committee and say, what position do you want to play? Here are the chairs for those positions, and which one do you want to serve on? And I do that in September. Well, if they don't know, then you can sit with them and say, well, tell me about yourself. What makes your heart go pitter patter? Everybody's on. What two subcommittees is everybody on? So they're already on two. So you just push them to one of those and say, or both of them say, we're meeting for prayer. Look at all the things that we're doing in prayer, what it takes to be the prayer chair. That's how you plug them in. Just walk them through that. Yeah. Ed.
I was going to say just that, Moose, that as the committee chair operationally, you know what
shoot,
has to
Ed.
happen. Go ahead.
I am sorry, you were next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, but he was actually answering her question as well. So
are you okay if he goes before you?
Yes, you can finish answering
Well, I was going to say
So she yields the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was her part.
Okay.
Robert's rules apply here. The point was that that she basically said that she didn't know, how to approach the subject. Well, what I was going to say was that you need to basically get to know your committee people. As a chairman, you know operationally what are the tasks,
right?
But you don't know the people that come to you and said, I want to be involved. So getting to know them first as committee chairman, find out their interests, their gifts, their skill sets, their capabilities,
right? And
then you have kind of a laundry list of what you have on your bench, basically.
Right.
Back to the analogy, but you started into that when you said meet with them. But I think as a committee chairman, getting to know the people on your committee first before you start assigning.
That's right. Your role as committee chair, raise your hand, committee chairs. Your role is to get to know your committee, right? You should know who you have. You got to know your team, right? If you're a coach, you want to know what are your strong positions, right? So you know how to recruit. You know how to go hit the free agency market to get what you need. Go ahead.
I should wait first. Now I'm nervous.
If I stand right in front of you,
it's all good. I'm new to this whole thing, and I'm
all right, everybody, form the double line. We're going to initiate it. No, you're good.
And I agreed to be. Is it the prayer chair, right? And I agreed to be what we have, because my committee leaders are over here, so I'm making sure I'm saying this stuff right.
There was no force at all.
You accepted it willingly.
I agree. And I also agreed to be church liaison.
All right.
Okay, so I'm ready to go. I'm the kind of person, you give me something to do and let's run with it, all right? Because I really envision our group get to being very huge. I never told you that, but I do.
Vision.
All right.
Without vision,
so I work best like this.
good.
So this is great for me.
Okay.
The book that you were talking about, or the handbooks, or whatever you said that people have to, do they have to buy them, or do they have to?
They're available resource.
Does that tell you every step, like step by step, to tell you what to do as far as what you agree to do?
Probably not every position has its own handbook at headquarters, but most of them do. And you can talk to your area director or committee chair and say, hey, I'm on prayer. Is there any kind of handbook other than the playbook?
Right, I did. I'm one of those A people, the A-type guys. And I did.
Are you firstborn?
Actually, I'm second, but I'm second. But anyway, it's second kid syndrome, Okay. All right, so I looked in here and I did cheat a little bit, and this is exactly what I need to. So that's why I'm really interested in that other book that you were talking about. That
books.
I do very well with step by step.
Yeah.
Oh, it's books.
Well, again, it just depends on which. Are you talking about a prayer? Is there? Help me.
There's a prayer thing in here.
No, I know there is. Is there a prayer? I don't know if there's a prayer manual at headquarters.
I thought there's just a committee one and then a committee chair one.
Committee chair, TDS, banquet.
Ask them to give you access to Young staff. You can go look at them.
Yeah, you can get. Ask who's your area director?
They are. They are, but
give her access online to be able to look at everything online and get the manuals right. Yeah, you can give her access.
You can download them for free.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You can download them for free? Okay.
That's the operative word, free. Free.
That's why it's free.
And that's why it's good. Hey, thank you for being new on the committee, and thank you for your heart and your vision and your passion. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you, and thank you for serving your team, because they need people like you. We need people like you for kids. Yeah.
2 years ago in this room, you gave this really great handout, which I just grabbed, because maybe people remember, I don't know, maybe you've seen it or not, but it was 8.5 by 11. Across the top half of the page, you wrote, "Dear committee chair, please ask me to do this." Love, Vicky, whatever. Bottom half, please, "Dear committee chair, please never, ever, ever, ever ask me to do this." And so, I handed those out, and some come back and some haven't, but talk about a helpful tool.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that over coffee, but you can just take this home, fill this out, and bring it back.
Does that make sense, everybody who's newer to this? Thank you for saying it. Makes me feel good that you remember something from 2 years ago.
Asking, but I'm like, you want to be asked to do this? Great. And
Yeah.
I would have never known some of those things that Vicky wrote down.
Yeah, that's right. And you, so I handed out a sheet 2 years ago that said just that. Please, committee chair, ask me to do these things on the committee. Prayer chair, golf, whatever it is that makes your heart go pitter patter for the ministry.
I mean, it wasn't like a check the box. It was blank.
Yeah, right. You fill it in.
Right.
But before we did that, what I was going to say is, before we did that, we went over, and I had a little different Excel spreadsheet graphic then.
I don't remember that.
I do.
That hurts me. that had everybody on our committee, and then a one-line description of each subcommittee, so that we could go over it and then say, okay, now knowing that, what would you want me to ask you to do? And then you would write down, well, I love prayer, and I'm type A. I need this stuff systematized, right? And so then the committee chair now knows, I got to get her a manual. I hate manual, but she'll love it. Something like that. Please ask me not to do these things. I get a rash thinking about having to fundraise. Don't ask me to do that. By the way, we're going to talk about TDS. Where's my TDS subcommittee chair? All right. I got some updated, approved stuff from headquarters on what I'm going to share. It's good stuff and freeing, because it makes TDS something we can all do, and you will actually like it. It's a shift from taking donors seriously and more of a change to the overall principle of thanking donors. We still call it taking donors seriously, because that's national. But it's the theory behind it is the heart behind it is now we want to thank them. So we're not asking for money. We will. Have you ever stopped giving to Young Life because someone thanked you too much?
No.
Okay, and if I said right now, I want you to make a call and ask someone for $5,000, would you go, I think I may want to step down from my role? But if I said, hey, could you call so-and-so, I'm not going to tell you how much they gave, but they're a significant giver to Young Life. We took 50 kids to camp last year. Would you call and thank them for their giving to Young Life and tell them that we took 50 kids to camp, and because of you, this area is being changed forever? Could you do that then? So it's shifting TDS from what we think is asking for loot. PTL, pass the loot. Praise the Lord, pass the loot. Be a hero, add a zero. Right? It's going from that. It's going from that to Ed, thank you for that money that you give to Young Life. I want you to know, because you gave that, at club last week, 3 kids came to McDonald's, sat with their leader, and said, I want to start a relationship with Jesus Christ. Thank you. Gosh, you lighten up. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and for the sake of all of the kids that are being impacted, because you gave to this ministry. We're eternally grateful. You're changing the landscape of this area, one kid, one family at a time. And you're changing the outlook of heaven because of that one check you wrote. And that's what our committee now, we break up the donor list. No one sees numbers. We break it up into 4 priorities. Priority 1 is the bigger givers. We have a little different strategy for them. But everybody gets calls or emails or a pop by, as we call them in real estate. And they get, we thank them with an update. Thank donors with an update. Because at the end of the day, no club ever got started by a staff person going to the school once a year. It got started because they went every day, every other day. No, we lose 50% of our donors every year. Did you know that? 50% of our donor base will be gone in your area next year by the numbers. And I mean, new ones will pick up at the banquet, but we lose 50%. And the reason we do that is because we're not doing good young life with them. We're not being good young life leaders to our donors. So we have to do a better job at building relationships like our leaders show us every day with the hundreds of kids that show up to the ministry. We have the opportunity to win a heart of someone who could add a zero. And that's not why we're trying to win a heart, but that happens when someone's heart is won, not their checkbook. Their checkbook's fine, we want the heart. So we got to do young life. So it's thanking donors here. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that should free everyone up to go, hey, I'm interested in taking donors seriously. I want to thank them. Any other questions before we break for lunch? You guys heard that thing that Casey did? He's got this rash. Oh, man.
I love your voice.
He doesn't really have a rash.
Anymore.
Yes, sir.
You started off this whole thing talking about how you chewed through 2 committees.
Not literally.
From the staff standpoint, what's your debrief on why that happened?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly why it happened. And thank you. I didn't even explain that. Last thing, then we're done. Is that okay if that's the last word? Okay.
No. That's another question.
Well, I'll be at lunch. If you want to find me at lunch, hey, Moose, sit with us. We'll talk, unless you want to sit with your leaders. When I was an area director, especially a young area director, you were a necessary evil. Hey, raise the money, do whatever committees are supposed to do. I want to go headlong into Norwood High School. And I'm so worried about meeting the right kids. I don't have time. I don't even know I don't know anything about committee. Young staff, loved kids, committee, necessary evil. My committee, you think they sense that? I ran the committee meetings. I was like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I need from you. All right, ready, break. I carried that same dysfunction down with me when I went to Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's when Young Life finally said, you're done, Moose. We think you're done. It's maybe time for you to roll off staff. Which is more of the blessing of, I love Young Life. I was done as an area director because, like I said, I'm a better coach than I was a player when it came to committee. And now, 6 years later, those suckers want me to be a national committee trainer. But that's because God had a better purpose for me. But I did burn through my committees because I didn't understand the value. I understand the value. And now, especially as a parent of kids involved, I really see the value. We're losing our area director, and he's my kid's young life. All right. Whew, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. I don't know.
Could I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you say you burned through 2 committees, but for those of us on committees,
what does that exactly mean?
Looking at it now, looking at it with 20/20 hindsight, what did the committee members, what did the committee chairs, what did the committees do well with you, and what did they maybe not do so well with you that might have caused a different result?
They didn't do any. They didn't have a chance to do anything not well. I did everything. I didn't let them be the star wide receiver in the huddle. I didn't let them be the best running back in the league or the best pulling guard or pulling tackler center. I didn't let them be what God gifted them to be. I just did it myself, Mr. Entrepreneur. So the good news in God's sovereignty is both of those areas are still going, and they're doing better than when I was there. God is way bigger than Moose. Praise Him for that. But that's what I mean. And so they didn't necessarily do anything wrong, and I think probably through some of those mistakes, and they enabled it because new committee members think, well, this must be the norm. This must be the way it works. It is not the way it works. You are in charge of the adult work in your area. Your staff person is the hired person you're bringing in. Most of these people aren't from your area typically, so you're the experts on your area, and you own it. So that's how we need to step up and say, no, this is our thing. And I just didn't do a great job. That's just full disclosure. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it now, but I think, you know what, the Lord used that in my life to be able to stand here today and go, no, I didn't do it right. I didn't do it well. And this is the way it should be done. And this is observable and provable that it is the right way to do it. That you guys are the backbone of young life. So if you're on the bench, which we'll talk about, you won't be after the next seminar. I'll close.